Labyrinths is brought to you by Knox Robinson Productions. Please consider becoming a patron. For as little as $5 a month, you can listen to Labyrinths ad-free.
Visit patreon.com/Knox Robinson to learn more.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
We bought bikes a week before leaving. We rode them 10 miles up the road and back from my parents' farm in Bend, Oregon. We had a buddy of mine, was a manager at a bike shop, had us come over and helped us put them together because we had no idea how to put them together. He told us even the parts we would need and bought us a nifty hand tool for when the parts fell off. And we boxed them and we flew to this place called Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, which is the northernmost point of the Americas with a road.
With the goal of riding where?
To Ushuaia, Argentina, which is the most southern place of the Americas.
Okay, so let's just pause right there.
Chris is already, annoyed.
What's wrong with you? If you were in therapy, what childhood trauma
would explain this behavior?
Led you to make this unwise decision?
Oh, my parents would like to know the same thing. Yeah.
Feeling lost?
Then you're in the right place.
I'm Amanda Knox.
And I'm Christopher Robinson.
And this is Labyrinths. Okay, so for those who are listening, who are you?
Yeah, Ville, who are you?
Well, I'm the other 50% of this traveling circus. I'm originally from Finland, and 15 years ago I met a girl on a scuba diving boat in Vietnam, and here I am on Vashon Island.
There is something in between. I'm pretty sure that you skipped over a little bit there, but yes. I'm Kristen, now Jokinen, because I married a crazy Finnish guy. And I'm from Bend, Oregon originally. And yeah, we're a little bit wild adventurers, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so we are interviewing you about one of your adventures that you've been on, that you wrote about in a recent book that came out called Joyride, which was a ton of fun to read.
Yeah, so while we were living in Finland, we decided, without ever hiking together and having never spent one night in a tent together, decided why not hike the Pacific Crest Trail. So Pacific Crest Trail, for those who don't know, is a trail that goes for a long trail that goes from Mexico to Canada, and it's 2,655 miles, but who's counting?
How long had you been an item at this point?
3 years?
About 3 years, yeah.
Okay.
We had done some wild adventures actually before that a little bit. We had crewed on sailboats in the Caribbean, literally responding to a crew wanted ad online, and sailed off into the open
now,
ocean.
Had either of you done a long hike like that before?
Absolutely not.
Nothing like that.
So you're both ill-prepared physically, and you have no idea what it's going to be like emotionally to spend all that time with each other.
Nope.
Yes.
Or with yourself, for that matter.
Totally. Yeah, so that is kind of where we started on one of these big adventures. And I think where this story and this book may resonate with others is to realize that we aren't professionals. we actually had no idea what we were doing. We were very ill prepared. We didn't have very much money. We were in Finland 2 weeks prior to starting, had no idea that it was the highest snow year on record, beatable only by this year, right? 2023. And so this was 2011, and we came back from Finland, flew to San Diego, and just started walking. And we made all the rookie mistakes, had way too much gear because we didn't know what gear you would even need to have on a thru hike. We'd never spent a night in a tent together. So we just got the gear and started walking. Took us 5 months. And funny enough, while doing this trail, where most probably level-headed, thinking people would say, hey, we survived 1 million river crossings and all this crazy 500 miles of post-holing and snow in the high Sierras. Let's go back to our warm plush bed. We were like, okay, this was amazing. What a fulfilling experience. We loved simplifying our lives and living with less. But let's get out of the woods for a minute. We'd like to go a little bit faster than walking at a slug's pace. And let's someday try maybe biking. Having no bikes and having no experience what that would be like.
I mean, even just not knowing the parts, like you're not even bike people. You didn't even know the names of the various bike parts. You're not a longtime bike riders who are aware of like biking culture.
Or changed a wheel.
And you bought your bikes just a week before doing this. Like, what?
Yeah.
Why did you think, or did you think it would all work out? Did you not worry that you were setting yourself up for disaster?
Yeah, I never thought it was going to be a disaster, but I was worried about the fact that we were not bike people. Like when you meet bike people, they're really into the cycling and they know a lot about bikes. They know a lot about cycling and this was literally my first bike in about 10 years or so. And so that was the starting point was like, I have no knowledge about fixing a bike. I knew that I could fix maybe a flat tire. That's about it. Patch a tire.
Did you tell people when you were like buying the bikes and everything, like what your plan was? And how did people react when they heard about what you were attempting to do?
Yeah, there was the first part was because we started in Alaska and then we were gonna ride down and obviously pass Oregon. A lot of people had this like, just make it to Oregon. I hope you guys just are alive till Oregon, and then it's no shame to quit in Oregon, and you guys are good. Like that's an accomplishment. Like don't worry about making the whole way. Like I think you guys are biting a little too big of a piece of a cake right now. Like
now, were you as equally ill prepared in terms of like your life financially and all the? How do you design your life to be able to do a trip like that?
Yeah, so we had bought a house together in Bend a couple of years before this that was a complete gut remodel, like down to studs. And so we had to do that together because we didn't have the money financially, otherwise us doing it. So we did that project. And while we were like deep in that, I feel like that's where we said, this completely sucks. Let's go do that bike ride because it sounds like a lot better than this job. So I think that's kind of where this mention of a bike ride kind of like got dug back up, and then we started talking about it again. Like, oh, that would be cool. Maybe we should go do that. And as far as being ill prepared, yeah, we didn't have very much money. I mean, we had a little tiny cushion. We had this house that was almost finished. We rented it to friends. We had $800 per month to spend. That was left over after house expenses for the both of us, which in about Mexico South, it actually worked out okay. But actually, we didn't even realize once we got up to Alaska, that's not even realistic at all because it's very big distances. You go days and days before you even see a food stop and you're starving. And that burger is like $20 to $30 a piece. And you do the math, how much of that burns through your $800 for the month, you know? So you're like, oh, why don't we just have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
So you still had like rental income, I guess, so that you had a money flow happening throughout the 2 years. But that the house basically subsidized your 2-year bike journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
as long as you were able to stay within that $800.
Yes.
Yeah. So it didn't leave a lot of wiggle room for like big things to break. Like, yeah, we had like penciled in like a chain every 2 months and a cable or things like that. But we just couldn't afford like breaking a tent or a sleeping bag.
What was your estimate of how long this would take you?
So we knew that we had to start in summer of the Northern Hemisphere and finish in the summer of the Southern Hemisphere because of the weather in both places. So it's either you do it in about 10 months or you do it in 20 months or you do it in 30 months. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we were shooting for around the 20-month thing. Like we finished in February, which is their hottest month. And I think maybe it was high 50s, the temperatures. So you can imagine what that is if you miss that weather window.
Wow.
Yeah, and at night our stuff was freezing.
Yeah.
That's how warm it was.
Wow. So you did this. I love how annoyed Chris. Chris is like mad about it. Like every time we go and travel, we have like a whole spreadsheet and we like have everything like this is where we're going to go and this is what we're going to see. And the idea that one would just a week before go, all right, let's do it. We got our bikes. Let's go. I am curious to dig deeper into understanding the why of all of that, because like on the one hand, it feels like a radical rejection of a lot of the ways that people decide that they want to build their lives. Like people are building their lives by accumulating things, not ridding themselves of things. And they're they have stability. People strive for stability, and going on a bike ride for 2 years, I guess, is kind of stable in the sense that you know what you're doing every day, but like what next and what could happen? Like how do you psychologically, first of all, justify a trip like this? And second of all, grapple with all of the challenges that you face as you encounter them, especially with each other.
Right. One of the positives of this that sounds maybe so foreign to most people is Ville and I feel like we thrive in not planning. We thrive in having no plan. And actually, an adventure to us is something we know nothing about. And we enjoy picking something that we don't know anything about, making the least plan possible. So if it's point A to point B, that's the plan. That's it. That's as deep as it gets. It also allows us not to overthink anything, because all of us know the best laid plans are always going to change. So you will spend so much time of your life planning something that as day one goes sideways and you're like, well, all that time was wasted on what? Because now I have to just charge ahead and make do, right?
Yeah.
And so also Ville and I have, through our lives together, have met many, many people that would say to us, I would love to do that, but I could never because, or they're so busy planning that they're never going to start.
Right.
And so when we say, really, there's no better time than now, we mean really now is the time, because you never know what tomorrow brings. So we pick point A to point B, we pick the generalized plan. And it also, I feel like for me, Ville is a little bit more of a planner in that he kind of wants to know just a little bit deeper on like where we're going. So it's not completely unsafe. We're not going to certain countries that have conflict zones or whatever.
Right.
But I like to go into places that I have no idea. And I mean no idea. Like I, kind of like you, Amanda, going on a study abroad program. I did that for college and went to Thailand. I didn't even know where Thailand was on a map, to be honest, when I agreed to go to Thailand and go work there. But the reason was because I love to jump into something I know nothing about. And then I have no preconceived ideas what it's supposed to be like. I just jump in and I learn as I go. And it's fun. It's exciting. It's like Christmas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what gives you anxiety, if not that? Or do you just not have anxiety?
I would say for me, anxiety comes, funny enough, in having lived this adventurous life so deeply together that this bond was formed on the Pacific Crest Trail and has continued now in these adventures. When Ville and I live sometime in extreme situations that most of us won't ever put ourselves in, I feel like the couple times where, like on the Pacific Crest Trail, we kind of lost each other. He went one way to get water and it got dark, and I went to go find him, and he backtracked a different trail back, and I thought I lost him.
Oh, damn.
And it was complete panic. And so that moment is the only thing that I could honestly say in my life that I had anxiety or panic in. But throw me into a totally new situation, doing a PCT hike, doing a bike ride, doing whatever this adventure is. By sailing, we did off into the middle of nowhere. My mom was really excited about that, by the way.
And then I waved goodbye to my daughter forever. Yeah, you know what? Like, one of the things that I think remains true is, we met each other. And one of the things that I remember you telling me was, oh my God, like, we grew up under very similar circumstances and we have very similar dispositions. Like, what happened to you could have happened to me. And what I get, like, a little bit, my spirit was that way going to Italy, because there were other people who were like, I had a plan. And I was like, yeah, I have a plan. My plan is to hang out in Italy for a while and go to school and learn poetry. And I think there's a poetry program that's happening in the summer. I'll deal with that later. Like, I had that spirit as well. And I just ended up in a lot more trouble. What is your relationship, I guess, with luck? And do you think about that at all?
Fantastic question.
I feel really lucky. And the more we travel, the luckier I feel. Just seeing real struggle and realizing how privileged I grew up and without those struggles. And when it comes to like some of the dangers that we met along the way, I feel like we have some good karma helping us. Like, I do believe in luck too, but I do believe even stronger to karma. We try to be good people, and I feel like a lot of good things come to us because of that. But yeah, I feel incredibly lucky that I met someone who is so into the things that I am into. And it's not that common to have that you find a spouse that is, when you say, hey, what do you think about biking from Alaska to Argentina? And you're almost hoping that they say, no, that's a crazy idea. You're crazy. But they just say, oh, that's a fantastic idea. Let's do that.
You mean you said, let's go bike South America. And I said, I don't know. I kind of want to see Alaska. And you're like, all right, well, let's just put that together. Okay.
Yeah, I was wanting to paint a better picture of you being the brains of this, but now...
Wrong. Pass.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this idea of what you put out into the world somehow comes back to you, because I know that that's one of the sort of messages that you want to carry across with your story. Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Yeah, very much so. So I actually want to tell you a quick story from the book, actually, Joyride, a bike odyssey from Alaska to Argentina. And one of the stories really stands out in explaining kind of this, how Ville and I are when we travel. So we were coming up to the border of Costa Rica, and it was miles ahead of the border crossing that there are trucks, right? These big, huge, like transporting semi trucks, and they're lined up for miles prior to the border crossing. And that is because they have to wait to check through goods and everything at the border. So Ville and I, we get to walk across because we're cyclists. Bikes, cycling, and walking get to go all the way to the front and just go through immigration, right? Nice. Okay, so as we come up to these trucks, it's early in the morning, first thing in the morning, and we're coming up to these trucks, and I as we do, Ville and I, buenos dias, hola, ¿cómo estás? To everybody, right? We're waving, smiling. Everybody these truckers are laying in hammocks. They're hanging out their windows. They're waving and smiling at us the whole way. As we're going. And this is for miles of this. Well, then we get to the immigration, we stamp through, and we keep riding. And now we're in Costa Rica climbing into the jungle. Except the rest of that entire day, and for days after, as these trucks finally make their way across the border, now they're coming by us. They're honking, they're waving, they're yelling out the windows, like, you crazy gringos, like, buen viaje. And they're just like so pumped. We just really made this like connection, this friendship with these people. And it was just simply by saying buenos dias and an acknowledgement of somebody else, with a smile on your face. And I feel like we found that a smile really goes a long way.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
The land down under has never been easier to reach. United Airlines has more flights between the U.S. and Australia than any other U.S. airline, so you can fly nonstop to destinations like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Explore dazzling cities, savor the very best of Aussie cuisine, and get up close and personal with the wildlife. Who doesn't want to hold a koala? Go to united.com/Australia to book your adventure.
The way that you talk about traveling reminds me of my own relationship with, say, novel writing, where knowing your A to B is important and some key sort of waypoints along the way. You have to have some idea of who your characters are and what's going to happen, but if you overplan it, it deadens the thing. And a great novel, in my experience, comes from figuring out along the way exactly where you're going and exactly what the characters are going to do and exactly how you get to B. And B might change significantly by the time you get there. And even the people who are arriving at B might change. And you just kind of have to dive in and start now, like you said. And if you don't, if you just plan and plan and plan, you get planning paralysis and then you never write the book. Now, on the other hand, I've never really done, like, say, improv comedy. I've done a little stand-up comedy, and I wrote a routine. I had my timing and my words down exactly to the second when I did open mics, right? The idea of just hopping in front of a mic and just, trying to be funny and talk to a crowd of strangers sounds kind of terrifying to me. But I'm wondering, for the two of you, like, does that appeal to either of you, or do you, or can you, or have you done that sort of thing? Because that, to me, sounds like the sort of social equivalent of the way you've treated your adventuring.
I think because of the budget that we had to go talk to people and ask for help, ask for a place to stay. It took me some time to go ask for help and be vulnerable. And not to say that it's the same, that someone can ridicule you, but someone can say no to you, and you have to be ready that you're going to sort of bomb, and someone's going to say, no, you can't stay here, you have to keep going. Or I would say that was definitely something that I learned on this trip. Just let my guard down and be vulnerable and go to people and ask for help.
That was a skill you built up during the trip.
During the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if coming from Finnish culture, you're not allowed to ask for help a lot.
Oh, interesting.
It's something we're very reserved and we have this, like, if you ask someone for help, you'll owe them forever. You have to do something back the next day. So I had to change my personality to do that and be okay with just asking for help and saying, hey, can we sleep in your yard, or do you have water or something like that?
And exist in a kind of pay it forward kind of way as well. Because it's like somebody helped me in the past. There's nothing I could do for them in return, but like eventually down the road, I'm going to do something for somebody else who's going to need something from me and expecting nothing in return kind of idea. That's interesting. Yeah, like one of the things that we were chatting about is you have a history, Kristen, in education. And when you were thinking about telling your story, how did that idea of paying it forward and also your like experience with education influence your decision about how and why to tell this story in the first place and not just let it be a thing you did and then move on to the next adventure?
Right. Yeah. Because when Ville and I were on this bike ride, like you said, we didn't have very much money, so we didn't actually speak very good Spanish. We just forced ourselves to try, and you butcher it, and and people like kind of laugh at you, and you just go, well, we're going to get better at it, and you get better. And when we actually crossed into Mexico, and we were in the middle of central Mexico, the last administration had changed over, and there was tensions between U.S. and Mexico. And Ville and I were just not sure how we would be received. And so we hadn't have worried because we were treated absolutely amazing by the people in Mexico. They welcomed us in, and we always showed up with our own food, and we were capable of taking care of ourselves. We always just usually asked a safe place to camp. So either a yard or a porch or something. And so repeatedly we were taken in and taken to quinceañera parties, first birthday parties, lucha libre, you name it. It was people would welcome the whole neighborhood and have parties for us. They wanted to take us to all these places. And so all of this amazing kindness had happened. And at the same time, as we know here in U.S., a lot of times we're inundated with the 24-hour news cycle, which is, I think, a last I heard statistic was roughly 80% of news stories are lean negative. And so when you think about that we are inundated with 80% the negative of news, but we all know majority of actually real life is pretty positive.
Right.
Right? And so when we had all this positive stuff happen to us and all this kindness come to us, I think Ville and I felt an obligation not only to give back, but those positive stories, all those kindness that had happened to us, it only will continue if we share it, right? Kindness grows exponentially. So it was like we needed to come back and we needed to go and we needed to share these stories. And what better place than schools? So along this bike ride, actually, we stopped in quite a few schools and we went and talked to a lot of the students about adventuring. And although we didn't focus on telling them what to do, and we realized that what we were doing was not likely what had an interest in these students of doing, but it was just telling a story, an interesting story with pictures and some video about this cool adventure and just sparking interest, planting a seed in others.
While you're on the adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In people like wanting to do something, living the path that's true to themselves. Do something cool and amazing and creative. And because our impossible was becoming possible, it felt tangible that we were able to relay that this is possible.
You're kind of proselytizers for adventure as a religion. Do you, do you think that adventure is for everybody in just different forms, or are there some people that just aren't, adventure's not for them?
So funny enough, when we did a lot of these talks in schools when we came back after the ride here in States, what we found is a lot of these students, and let me tell you what, you want to go in front of a bunch of high school kids.
That's like an open mic, Right?
That is an open mic right there. That's like the firing squad. They're just like, they are, you know what I mean, no holds barred. So we did a lot of high school students talking to them about this adventure and adventuring and the kindness from people. And a lot of them would come up afterwards and they would say to us, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. This was amazing. This was very inspiring. I don't want to do anything like what you do or what you've done, but you inspired me to, one student told us, I really, his massive kid who was a football player. He was playing football at the time, but his dad really supported and pushed him to play. And he actually realized, like, this is not my passion. My passion is actually singing. And he came up to Ville and told him the story. You guys inspired me today to go back and tell my dad, I don't want to play football anymore. I want to pursue my passion, which is singing.
Aww.
Wow.
It was really, really amazing. I mean, we were both bawling. It was just so cool. And so it was that. It was the teacher that came back after and said, you inspired me to go take my kids on a camping trip by myself to the San Juan Islands, for the summer. And it was the best trip they had. And any different number of things you can imagine that we heard from people. And once you start hearing that, you realize, yeah, it's working. Like what we're doing is making a difference. Yeah.
Awesome.
Like you're bringing joy or fulfillment to people, or you're enabling them to see how they can bring that into their own lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact, like what we want to emphasize is how little we knew about biking and hiking, that we're probably the worst people in the world to come up with excuses. That's our strength is we just don't know how to come up with excuses not to do something. There's a lot of things these days that people have about, like when it comes to traveling or adventuring is gear, and you need this specific gear, and you need this background, you need to be already an ultra athlete to do something like this. And that was the one thing is like, no, you actually don't need any of this background of sports or having done this before. You can just go.
Yeah, I really like that because, not to become a advertisement for Nike, but the just do it mentality, it really resonates with me because I feel like you're right. There are always going to be reasons not to do the thing that you want to do. There are always going to be reasons. And you can always try to refine your plan indefinitely. There's always something more that you could have thought through. And at the same time, like, life isn't like that. Life just happens to you, and you only have right now to live it. So you might as well just try and just do what you can right now. Did you ever question that philosophy, though, along the way? Was there ever any moments of doubt, or was there a moment, like, what was the most difficult moment that maybe tested your resolve?
I wish we had planned this more.
Yeah.
So funny enough, when we flew to Bruto Bay to give listeners an idea of what this place looks like, it is the most northern place, like I said, with a road in Alaska. And so it's on the Arctic Ocean. We got to go see the ocean before we started biking south. There is a road is being generous to call it a road. It is a mud pit gravel mess. And only of the 500 miles, only about 100 miles is paved. It has some form of pavement. And so it's constantly being graded and fixed because the weather is so gnarly up there that they have to keep continually fixing it. And so when we got up there, this is where polar bears are, by the way. That's how far north we are.
Jeez.
And right before we arrived, a foot of snow fell a day or two before. You could still see it, right, in the shadows. And I didn't even think until we got there that if a foot of snow fell as we're traveling, there is nowhere for us to get out of it. And what are you going to do? You're not going to bike through a foot of snow, right? You're just kind of stuck there in your tent waiting for the snow to melt. So this is an insane place, and there is nothing from the Arctic Ocean for 10 days. And by the way, we had done no miles. So for 10 days is roughly, if we can stick to 50 miles a day, which by the way, we had never done 50 miles a day, not let alone like on fully loaded 100 pounds each, now fully loaded bikes. Now we have to get from there to Fairbanks. It's about 10 days at 50 miles a day, or we'd run out of food. So there's not an option.
Cool.
Because there's nothing up there but one lone gas station called Coldfoot in the middle along the way. So to give you an idea of like what this place was like, it's as if on the Pacific Crest Trail, we had been helicoptered into the High Sierra wilderness and dropped off to start hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, right? So it's a little bit wild to go to that place and think you're going to start a bike trip that you have zero experience. You're not in shape at all. By the way, didn't even know that the saddles we had, which are leather, you want to break them in slowly before you get on them and start going every single day, 50 miles a day.
Oh, God, the chafing.
Oh,
the
yeah.
chafing.
Saddle sores, baby. Oh, my goodness. Rugged.
So why didn't you die of exposure?
How are you here today?
Yeah.
What's the saying? What's the Finnish saying?
Oh, what could kill the devil?
Say it in Finnish, though.
Mikä pirun tappaisi?
Okay, and it means kill the devil?
Yeah, what could kill the devil? Like,
What does that mean? So, like, are you the devil? Like, nothing can kill you?
yeah, like,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
that's kind of like
try and stop me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of laughing at yourself. Kind of like I'm I'm the devil. Like that just reminded me. I don't think I've ever even shared it with you, Kristen. This my very lowest moment personally was in Pacific City, Oregon, on the Oregon coast. It's been raining for 5 days in a row. Like I said, our budget was about $25 a day. There's no wiggle room for a hotel, motel, or a burger and a beer. So there's this picturesque place called the Pelican Brewery right on the beach. It's right on this beach overlooking this haystack rock. We get to that spot and we take some pictures because it's a beautiful spot, and it's one of those like the most beautiful places to have a burger and a beer. There's a couple of hotels right next to it, and this couple was walking by us. And it's raining. It's raining and tent is wet. I know the tent is wet on the bike. I'm wet. She's wet. We're trying to take this picture. This couple walks by. They're walking straight. I saw them coming out of the hotel. They're walking into the brewery, and they're talking about going and getting burgers and beer. Oh my God! And here we are, and I'm just thinking of like, could we just call mom and dad and just say, can you guys send us some money? Like this is so hard, like because you're looking like I knew exactly what's gonna happen. We're gonna keep biking until we're warm again. Then we're gonna pitch the wet tent in the bushes somewhere in the woods, and go to bed and wake up and try to cook an oatmeal in the rain.
Why did I give myself this life?
Yeah, and this couple, they were so happy.
You're that could be me.
Yeah, those bastards were not even wearing rain gear. They were like in their sweatpants, and they were just walking that 100 yards from the hotel to the place, and I was like, oh my God. That was the moment I was like, I wish we had a little bit more money. But that was the only time.
Okay, wait. So now we got to know what your lowest moment was, Kristen.
Oh, yeah. So unfortunately for me, I got a virus. We think it was dengue fever. I had picked this up in Costa Rica, and I am sicker than a dog. And that was absolutely my lowest. I had to get IVs. I had to go see my doctor. I was so sick. And I didn't know first that I was going to make it out of it because I hurt so bad. And then once I finally started moving again after a week to two, and I'm like upright. So I'm by far not in biking shape. I've lost all my biking shape. And my doctor was like, you absolutely should not be exercising, let alone going back to those bikes and continuing. And I was like, I'll be damned. If I started this and made it that far, I'm going to quit here.
Right.
Because I'm a mosquito. Exactly. And I was still very sick to where every bump I went over, I could feel it in my spine because it's virus. So it's really in your joints. And I was out of shape, and it's so humid in Costa Rica, like rugged, humid, just real hot and sweaty. And I had to just keep going. And you're trying to remind yourself every day why you're doing this while you feel like hell.
Yeah.
Right? So that was my lowest low, but...
Kind of beats I wanted a beer but didn't get one.
Yeah, I looked really bad.
He looked like he was about to cry remembering this story.
Yeah, but I really like beer, so I mean...
Thank you, Kavanaugh.
Too soon?
All right. I mean, that's pretty badass to just push through dengue fever Did Ville ever do anything, approaching badass?
Yeah, many, many times. Ville is an amazing partner because when we set off to do the Pacific Crest Trail and we didn't have any experience and we were kind of learning as we go, one thing that he did that completely stands out above all of anybody else was that he very intentionally, without even asking, he decided he was going to hike behind me and let me set the pace on the hike and also on the bike ride because I hike and pedal so much slower than him that he knew that if he went in front, he would just lose me. He would just go way out ahead and we wouldn't be in this together. And so,
I do that too. It's just because I like the view, though.
Maybe that is why Ville's doing it.
Yep.
But yeah, he chose to do that, and I know it was because he wanted us to be close and be together in these journeys that we've done. Yeah, and for me, that's his badassness.
That's pretty badass. I support this as the badass notion. Is that why your publisher decided that the slogan for your book should be "Love on Wheels"?
Yes, I definitely think that's where that came from. That and amongst other things. Yeah.
Is there a next time? Like, do you guys already have a vision of what your next adventure is going to be?
There's a couple of visions, yeah. And the decision process that we have is a lousy one. It's just, we have this thing like where we have some ideas that keep popping more and more. And we go with the one that goes more and more. We talk about it. But we have a couple of things right now that we'd love to do, actually both on bikes. But we haven't decided if it's something else than bikes.
It's not like horses or
don't
biplanes.
Don't give them ideas.
Right.
We have some ideas of what we want to do next. The book tour is the main adventure. And it's been an adventure, and I feel like it's going to be an adventure still. But yeah, we have some ideas. But since the big ride, we've done 3 smaller rides. We've ridden from Finland to Croatia.
You might be becoming bike people.
I know.
Be careful.
I know, yeah. We're going to start talking about gear ratios.
Yeah. Can you name all the parts of the bike now?
Absolutely not.
No.
The twirly majig that broke when we were over.
Yeah. So much so that I wrote this book and actually had to look up parts while writing the book going, what was that thing that broke? Or what was that thing I'm trying to describe? No clue. Yeah. No clue. But yeah, we very much, as we are no planners, we are launched into this book tour, and we've had the launch party at Powell's Books in Portland and Barnes & Noble in Bend, and we're on our way to Elliott Bay here in Seattle, and it is like a back-to-back tour that's going to take us all through the U.S. And so we both know that this book was that's my passion, was to try and put these adventures on paper and tell this story. The book tour is part of that adventure. It's just going to take us where it takes us, and we're kind of along for the ride on this wild adventure that we're on right now.
Do you want to talk about a little bit of what the adventure of making and bringing a book, birthing a book into the world is like?
That's actually a very accurate word for it, because I feel that a lot of people like to ask you, I think that's probably a standard question when you're at a book signing and everybody's coming up and they're asking you, so when's the next book? Or are you going to write another book? And I say, I am basically in labor right now, in the middle of this, birthing this book, and you're asking me, when am I going to have the next kid?
Yeah.
So
you're breastfeeding the newborn right now.
Yeah. So I'm like, let's get this one out first, and then we'll talk about the next one. Yes. Absolutely. And to answer you, as far as you both are authors also, so I don't know if you can speak to this because this is my first book and I've not authored a book before. I've not written a book before. But I'm actually really glad I didn't know anything going into this adventure. Seriously. No, I'm not kidding. Just like all the other adventures. Because I think if I would have known all the things, I may never have jumped into it, just like the bike ride or the PCT hike or the every other thing we've done. It's been a big learning curve, right? Because you think in your mind, oh, it'll be a year, and then it's a couple years, and then, you write the whole saga. And I think when I finished, the manuscript was like 500 pages, and I hand it to the publisher who chops it down to 300 because that's more realistic to get out in a book. And you have to watch all these stories that you've lived and written and put pen to paper just hit the floor, right? Yep. And then you finally get the cover and all the design and all the things, and it gets pulled together, and all of a sudden it's a beautiful book in front of you, and you're like, oh my gosh, here it is. And then that's not marketing a book.
Yeah, it's a whole separate job. Being a publicist is a very different job than being an author. And in the modern publishing landscape, they so often expect authors to be doing all their own publicity because the budgets for those things have disappeared. And so they're just sort of trusting you that, oh, you're going to know how to get this into the world and get eyeballs on it and get people to care about it, right?
Right.
And you're like, oh, well, I didn't know I had to have that job too because
I ride a bike long distances. Yeah. I don't have Instagram.
Right. That's exactly it.
It's a very different skill set and one that you're now being forced to learn.
Yeah.
But jumping in and doing is often the best way to learn something, provided you're okay falling on your face a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah. Repeatedly. Yeah. And learning as you go, because one thing that works one day doesn't work the next. You just have to try a million things, see what sticks, and go with it. And I think the positive is that because I wrote genuinely from the heart with the best intentions to inspire people, and I really felt like if I inspire one person from this, that's a win, right? And so then it's like, I feel that every time I go and I get these people that come up to me and want their book signed and tell me this inspired them for this, that, or the other, then it's like, okay, this was a win. Today it went great, and it's going somewhere and it's inspiring someone. So
I wanted to ask about how do you stay motivated? How do you get into the mindset of having the energy to keep going and keep doing a thing even when you don't know what you're doing and you're trying a million things and you're falling on your face? Is it just reminding yourself, I'm on an adventure and adventures have ups and downs? Is it as simple as just convincing yourself that you're an adventurer and that's how you navigate the world? Or where do you get the motivation? Where do you get the energy?
So we had this game we played that we did hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. And it was, what would be worse than doing this right now? And so what we discovered from this game, and by the way, this happened in the high Sierras when we were post-holing in snow, and we finally started to see trail, but there were still massive amounts of snow, so you're never quite getting to trail. So it's this teaser, and you're just getting so frustrated and having to hike over all these piles of snow now. And we played this game, what's worse than this? And when you start going back and forth, yo-yoing between things that could be worse than this, you discover this ain't so bad.
Yeah. And you can also have fun with that, abducted by aliens and getting anal probed. And you're like, yeah, you know what? That would be worse than this.
Well, I guess it depends who you're talking to.
Yeah.
That's I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Maybe you are. But that's a Stoic meditation technique called negative visualization. Where you go out of your way to imagine a version of your life that is worse than the current one. And just on a daily basis, you can sit there, it's sort of like the inverse of gratitude exercises, where it's sort of paired with them in a way. Because as soon as you finish imagining that
Like really fully embodying,
Yeah,
like,
just like-
oh, I could be living the exact same life right now, but Eureka could be sick with some debilitating disease.
Yeah.
And like you live in that brain for a second and you go, oh my God, the fact that I'm in exactly the same situation, but she doesn't have a debilitating disease is like amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you can't tell by now, Ville and I also we don't really take ourselves too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
We laugh a lot. I feel like we make light of a lot of situations. And when stuff gets kind of heavy and stuff gets kind of intense, I feel like we're very good at making light of it by making a joke out of it, of just being able to laugh at ourselves.
You got to have the humor. Otherwise, it can get pretty depressing sometimes.
Right.
Are there any particularly funny moments from the trip or moments that had you laughing riotously?
I particularly liked your saga of your sleeping pad, actually.
Yeah, so this happened in Bolivia. So this is a high pass in Bolivia that we're crossing. We're at maybe 13,000 feet. And we stop at the very top once we get there and we're hungry. And I get everything out and I had put the stove at the bottom. So I had all my stuff pretty much out of the bag on the ground. And I start cooking lunch for us. And then hailstorm starts. And so we're just finishing up real quick. And I'm throwing everything back into the bag. And I just threw everything in. And then we finished eating and kept going. And then we dropped down to only like 3,000 feet. Massive drop. For like 30 miles, we're going downhill. We get to the bottom. It's this dry riverbed. We start camping, and I can't find my sleeping pad anywhere. Where is it? And then we realized that when I took everything out, that's where I must have dropped it and not put it back in and left it on the ground. So that doesn't help. Can't do anything about that night. So we just share this 24-inch sleeping pad. So we're spooning hard.
Super
The
romantic.
hardest you've ever spooned.
Well, I've never spooned so hard. And in the next morning, and we were traveling at that time, we were traveling with this Colombian kid. He was in his 20s. And so in the morning, we leave Kristen in with the tents, and we get back on the road, and we hitchhike, me and Camilo, the Colombian kid, and because there's no way biking back. That would have been another day or so. So after 5 minutes or so, a box truck stops and this guy says, yeah, I'm going that way. Yep, hop on in. We're sitting there in the cockpit with him and he's talking a million miles an hour and his eyes are like dinner plates. He's wired. So he offers us some coca leaves to chew, which is in Bolivia and Peru, it's legal and people chew them for the altitude sickness. And so we both say, sure, we'll try some coca leaves, and we're chewing as we're going up really fast, and it's helping, it's keeping the headaches away, and then he gets out a little, closest thing you could call it maybe is whiskey or cognac, and he offers us some, and we're like, oh, okay, sure. We'll have a sip. And so we take a sip and he takes a massive sip.
Oh, no.
Good sign.
Yeah, it is a fantastic sign when you're going up these winding roads in Bolivia. And all of a sudden he gets this small vial out of his pocket of white powder. He doesn't say what it is. He just offers to us. And we both kind of like put two and two together like, okay, this is cocaine. So we say, no, we're good. Yeah, thank you. And he sniffs some cocaine, and after that he's just even more wired. You think like this, there's no way he's gonna be more energetic, and the speed is increasing, but luckily only 10-15 minutes later we get to the top. We're like, oh, thank God, yeah, the spot is right there, please pull over, we're good, yeah, awesome, thank you so much. He's like, no, I'm gonna help you guys, because it was a construction site. There's these boulders, all size boulders, like anything from a soccer ball to the size of a vehicle, and he's trying to pick up these massive boulders because he's so amped, and he's picking them up, and I go, no, mister, it's not underneath a boulder. It's gonna be in the vicinity of a boulder, not underneath one. He's so energetic, and he's picking up this boulder. Like, oh, I'll help you, and he's lifting these, and his veins are, so he's on his forehead, and his eyes are massive. luckily, we just say, okay, it's a lost cause. It's not here. Thank you so much. Please have a safe, try to have a safe day. And he goes, I haven't slept in 3 days. We look at him like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But you got the medication for it. So luckily, then a construction guy comes, shows up and says, hey, yeah, we found the sleeping pad, but it's at the camp. So later that night, we hitchhiked back and we got another ride to the camp, and we were able to find the sleeping pad. But that was an adventure, just with this coked up box truck driver that hadn't slept in 3 days.
Wow,
that's another way to do the journey. Maybe next time it's not bikes, but trucks and cocaine.
Love on cocaine.
Yeah. We'll definitely be biking faster.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It wouldn't take nearly 2 years, I think, to go from Alaska to Argentina. I don't know if I said, so this whole journey took us about 20 months, and we rode about roughly 18,215 miles. When we finished in this place called Ushuaia, Argentina, that was this moment where we were at the sign that just said, end of the world. And we sat there and there was nobody, right? There's just no one there. And it was just the two of us. There was nobody up there, right? Mm-hmm. It's an oil field, and there's oil field workers and scientists and us. There's nothing else. There was actually about 13-ish more miles that we had to ride to get to the very end of the road called it's a national park called Bahia Lepetaya, and that is where the road actually ends and just disappears into the ocean. So we go see the water, we get on the bikes, and you just start riding, right? And it's just all these emotions and feelings all at once, and mainly just all coming back, flashbacks from this ride. We are both just instantly tears, right? Because it's just such an intense feeling that I can't even explain. I think Ville explained it once by just saying it's kind of like when people say they come to the end of their life and they see their life flash before their eyes, like all these memories all at once, all of a sudden come so fast, rapid fire at you. It is very much like that. And we get to the very end, and there wasn't even words. We were laughing and we were crying. Like at the same time, if that's possible, you're just kind of like almost this hysteria.
You're manic.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I just vividly remember when we got to the Bahia Lepetaya sign at the very end, and this is the very, very end, and we rode our bikes up. There was this guy standing there, this group of tourists there, and the guy said, "Hey, you made it," and gave me a high five right as I rode up. And he goes, "So where did you start?" And I was like, Alaska. And he was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, Alaska. And he said, when did you finish? And I said, right now. This is the moment. And he was just so without words, too.
Yeah, that's like walking into somebody's like birthing room and being like, so, nice baby.
Totally. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And so he tells us, can I take your picture? And we were like, yeah, sure. We get in for this sign. Well, it turns out this whole group are National Geographic photographers. And they were on their way because this Ushuaia is where they left to go to Antarctica. And they were on this big excursion there. And they were blown away by the fact that we just came by Alaska by bike and took our picture there. And funny enough, you would think that we can't wait to go and like go back to Ushuaia, get our hotel, and we're like done, man, right? We're just like ready to like throw these bikes into the ocean and just like, bye. Yeah. And instead we went back just a little bit further from the road and into the trees, and we pitched our tent and we stayed another night in our tent right there next to the water. And the reason was just this had been our life, and like letting go. It's even really emotional, me talking about it now, like letting go of that life. It's something I don't think Ville and I've ever let go of. That tent, that sleeping pad, that space, being together, being on that.
Alone at the end of the world.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Any final words before we let you go on to your next adventure?
You're better at the final words because you always have the final word in our relationships.
Boom. Yeah. So one thing that I feel that I'm so lucky and blessed with in my life to have is this, that Ville and I have been able to do these kind of adventures, and a lot of them have been in places that people have far less than I have. And it allows me, because I think all of us have what our life is, our own bubble that we're surrounded with, right? If it's in that small house or community or whatever it is, that's what we visually see. And I noticed when I come back to US a lot of times, the people around me, they're just wanting the bigger house, the better car, the whatever, because they're surrounded by people that have more and just a little bit out of reach of touch. And that's their driving force.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Absolutely. And Ville and I, when you live on a bicycle with 4 bags, 2 shirts, 2 shorts, rain gear, warm weather clothes, and sleeping gear, and that is it. That's what you're carrying, a stove and a tent. And you have $800 a month, which ain't much, but you're happy. Don't take much to be happier, right? And so if you're in that space and you're biking through a lot of these places that you have this little, but the people that you are meeting and encountering have even far less than you do, and they have a smile on their face and they're offering you food, they're offering you places to sleep, they're offering you time to spend with their family, your idea of the world is so different than most people. And so I don't feel that I want for more than I already really have because of this life that Ville and I have chosen to live. And the reason we do these crazy adventures, people probably wonder, like, why can't you just go for 2 weeks on a trip, like normal people? And we do these like 2-year saga.
Yeah.
But it's because we want to be our life. We don't want it to just be a vacation, right? You go on a vacation and you're already thinking, oh my gosh, my trip's almost over. And then I got to go home and I got all this stuff to do.
I got to check my email.
Yes. You don't get to actually shed all of that. But if you turn this, like you pick a trip and you're going to do this for 2 years, this will become your life. This meditation, if you will become your life. And that's the space you will live. And I don't think there are many people sometimes that live in this space that Ville and I live in. And what is sometimes actually challenging is when you live in this space that most people can't relate to you. They don't know what you've been through or where you are. Sometimes I feel like I'm somebody who's been able to get on a spaceship, right? And they've been able to go all the way up to the moon and look back at Earth. There's so few people that get to see that or experience that. And that's kind of sometimes I can compare what Ville and I have done or do to that. Only we share with maybe very, very few people this beautiful world and this beautiful life, and trying to always stay in just being content with what we have.
Yeah. We had just come down from the Western world, US and Canada, where the questions were, why would you put yourself through this? Like, how can you possibly enjoy sleeping in a tent night after night and biking and in heat and rain, and people asking us like, oh, you guys are so tough because you're putting yourself through this hell, and and then getting to Latin America and then them reminding by saying, you guys are so lucky to see all this beautiful world, and my dream is that my kids will someday be able to travel, and that was a good reminder of how lucky we are that we get to do this.
You can find Kristen Jokinen's book, Joyride, wherever books are sold.
And if you want to keep up with their adventures, follow them on Instagram at We Lost the Map and visit their website, welostthemap.com.
And if you're enjoying Labyrinths, get lost with us. Find us on Twitter, @ManUnderBridge.
At Amanda Knox.
You can learn more about our work and how to support it at knoxrobinson.com. And please leave us a 5-star review. And when you take the earbuds out, tell a friend, tell your mom, or tell a friendly stranger on the bus what they're missing out on.
Labyrinth is brought to you by Knox Robinson Productions. This episode was written and produced by us, with theme music by Josh Budo Karp.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Really
Yes.
appreciate it.
For
Yeah,
sure.
thank you so much for having us, you guys. This is really, really fun.
Yeah.
All right. The name of the book is Joyride. You can find it wherever books are sold.
By Kristen Jokinen.
And
Vile's important part of it.
Ville.
I'm the hero and the villain.
Yeah.
Complex character. With IBS.
I've changed his name. His name is Hans. He's from Sweden in the book.
Really?
No.
So to say, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome, though?
No.
I want a burger and a beer now.
Yeah, I really want a burger and a beer now. Do you want to get a burger and a beer now? That sounds
yeah.
great.
Sounds amazing. Well, it's better than dengue fever, I'll tell you that.
Oh, God. Fun fact, for every hour of Labyrinths you enjoy, we put in dozens of hours researching, outreaching, interviewing, scripting, editing, and audio engineering.
What keeps us going?
Coffee. So if you're enjoying Labyrinths, please buy us a coffee.
Head over to patreon.com/Knox Robinson, where you can make a monthly donation.
Thanks for getting lost with us.